He kicked out his black wife. 6 years later, she flew to his wedding with twins. He kicked her out when she was pregnant with his twins. Without a word, without mercy. 6 years later, she appeared at his wedding, stepping out of a helicopter, hand in hand with the daughters he never knew. And with her she carried the truth that would tear his perfect world apart. If he hadn't thrown her away, if he had just listened, everything could have been different. The late afternoon sun hung low over the sprawling Lawrence estate, casting golden light across a scene that could have been torn from the pages of a luxury wedding magazine. Rows of pristine white chairs fanned out in perfect symmetry, framing a floral altar draped in silks and roses, each petal hand-selected to represent purity, elegance, and tradition. The guests, nearly 300 of them, murmured softly, sipping champagne beneath the shade of ancient oak trees strung with chandeliers, their designer shoes barely touching the manicured grass. This was no ordinary wedding. This was the union of two American dynasties. Graham Lawrence, CEO of Lawrence Biomed, and Caroline Ashton, daughter of Senator William Ashton. A marriage built on power, legacy, and the careful orchestration of reputation. It was a day the press had been salivating over for months, the kind of event that solidified names in history books, not just headlines. But beneath the surface of perfection, something stirred. Graham stood at the altar, the embodiment of control, his hand-tailored tuxedo fit like a second skin, his sandy blonde hair combed meticulously back, and his eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, scanned the crowd as if reading the room was second nature. At 35, he had everything: wealth, influence, a future mapped out with precision. Yet, as he stood there, waiting for his bride, a whisper of doubt crept in, something he hadn't felt in years, a hollowness, deep and gnawing, like the ghost of a decision long buried but never forgotten. Caroline appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant, poised, her ivory gown catching the light as if she herself were heaven sent. The crowd hushed as she took her first step toward the man who would be her husband. Her father walked proudly beside her, every inch the image of American political royalty. The music swelled Passion Bell's canon, and everything seemed suspended in time. Until the sound. It was faint at first, almost dismissible, like distant thunder or the hum of a passing plane. But it grew louder, mechanical, rhythmic, a chopping, heavy pulse that seemed to slice through the carefully curated serenity. Heads turned. The quartet faltered, their bows trembling mid-sight. Graham's mother, Louise, seated in the front row, stiffened, her eyes narrowing to slits. Then, from beyond the horizon, a black helicopter emerged, cutting through the sky like a blade. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Security moved, but too slowly. This wasn't part of the plan. No one had authorized a flyover, let alone a landing. But the helicopter didn't care for plans or permissions. It descended, bold and unstoppable, onto the estate's private helipad, kicking up a whirlwind of rose petals and silk. Caroline stopped in her tracks, her veil lifting in the artificial wind. Graham's heart pounded. Once, hard, then stopped. The rotors slowed. And then she stepped out, tall, graceful, her skin a luminous, radiant brown. Her navy maple pantsuit hugged her form with quiet power, her heels clicking against the stone like the ticking of a clock finally come due. Amara. The name hit him like a punch to the chest. His past, his wife, the woman he had cast out 6 years ago, pregnant, pleading, betrayed. And beside her, 2 little girls hand in hand, mirrors of each other, and of him, Maya and Nia, his daughters. The world spun. The wedding guests, frozen in disbelief, turned their eyes from the altar to the woman walking steadily down the path, as if she belonged, because she did. Amara didn't flinch, didn't falter. Her eyes locked on Graham's, steady and unyielding, and in them he saw everything he had tried to forget. Love, pain, betrayal, and the truth. Caroline's voice cut through the silence like shattered glass. Who is she? What is this? But Graham couldn't answer, because in that moment, he didn't know what his life was anymore. The perfect facade cracked. The past had come calling, and it had brought proof. Amara stopped just short of the altar, her daughters flanking her like twin beacons of a truth too powerful to ignore. One of them stepped forward, holding a photograph, Graham cradling a newborn. The world he built was over. And this? This was only the beginning. Section 1. The day she was erased. The memory had dulled over the years, but in the cold quiet of sleepless nights, it returned with brutal clarity. The night Graham Lawrence erased the love of his life. It was raining, hard, the kind of rain that drowns the city in silver, washing away footprints, voices, promises. Graham sat in the dim glow of his office, the city sprawled out before him like a kingdom. But tonight, the glass walls felt like a cage. In his hands, a manila envelope thick with betrayal. Inside, screenshots of messages, hotel receipts, photos he hadn't dared to believe. Amara, and another man. A door had been built. He hadn't called her, not right away. For hours he'd sat in silence, replaying every moment, every conversation, searching for signs he'd missed. Her late nights at the hospital, the calls she'd taken in hushed tones, the distant look in her eyes when he spoke of their future. Was it all a lie? The door to their brownstone creaked open just after midnight. Amara walked in, drenched, shaking off the cold with a weary sigh. She was carrying a bag of groceries, her hair plastered to her forehead. She didn't see him at first. Graham, she called softly, setting the bag on the counter. I tried calling, but... Who is he? His voice cut through the room like a blade. She turned, startled. What? He stood, holding the envelope. Daniel. Who is he? Her brow furrowed, confusion spreading across her face. I don't know what you're talking about. He threw the envelope onto the table. The contents spilled out. Proof, or so he thought. She froze. Slowly she stepped forward, picking up one of the pages, eyes scanning the lines. These aren't mine, she whispered. Graham, I didn't write these. Don't lie to me. His voice rose, rough and sharp, full of something between heartbreak and rage. I trusted you. I gave up everything for you. Her eyes filled, not with guilt, but with something more dangerous. Fear. I swear to you, I don't know who this is. These messages, they're not real. But he had already made up his mind. He needed it to be true. It was easier than facing the doubt, the questions, the disapproval of a world that had worn him from the start. Get out. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. The words, cold and final, were worse than any scream. Graham, please. Her voice broke. I'm pregnant. He flinched, just for a moment. His child, he spat. The slap never came, but the silence after was louder than any violence. Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head, stunned. No, yours. Our child. But he wouldn't listen. Couldn't. His world built on order, on certainty, was crumbling, and he needed someone to blame. Leave. She didn't argue again. There was no more air in her lungs, no fight left. She gathered what little she could, her dignity folded into a single bag. She stood at the door, her hand trembling on the handle, and turned back one last time. If you let me walk out that door tonight, nothing will ever be the same. He didn't answer. And then she was gone. Brooklyn, 2 a.m. Amara stood beneath the streetlight, the rain washing over her like judgment. Her heart pounded, her hands cradling her stomach. Their child. He didn't believe her. He didn't even ask. She had given him everything, her trust, her love, her future, and he had thrown her out like a mistake. The city felt colder than it ever had. Alone with no family, no one to turn to, she walked. Hours passed. She didn't remember how long. Only that when she finally stopped, it was in front of a shelter. The neon sign buzzed overhead. She stepped inside, soaked and shivering, and sat in a corner cradling the life inside her. Back at the Lawrence estate. Graham sat alone in the dark, the rain beating against the windows. He poured himself a drink, but it tasted like ash. He thought he would feel relief, power, control. Instead, he felt empty. He looked at the papers again, the so-called evidence. The words blurred, twisted. A small voice in his head whispered doubts, but he silenced it. He had done what needed to be done. Hadn't he? Weeks later, the news spread quietly. Graham was single again. The rumors of a secret wife, a whirlwind romance, faded into shadows. His mother smiled more. His father returned to business as usual. No one asked about Amara. No one cared. But at night he couldn't sleep. He still heard her voice, still remembered the look in her eyes when she said, "I'm pregnant." And sometimes when he was alone, he wondered what if she had been telling the truth? Amara. The shelter was temporary. Amara knew that. She found work at a clinic, under the table, cleaning, filing, anything. The pregnancy was hard, but harder still was the silence. No word from Graham, no attempt to find her. Her belly grew. So did her resolve. She wouldn't break. She couldn't. When the twins were born, alone, in a dim hospital room, she named them Maya and Nia, names that meant strength and purpose. She looked into their eyes, saw Graham's gaze staring back, and made a promise. He held up a wooden hammer. "You will know love, even if the world tries to erase us. You will know love." Section 2. She built a life without him. The streets of Queens didn't care who you were, where you came from, or what dreams you'd lost along the way. They taught survival, plain and brutal. And Amara Blake, the woman once known as Mrs. Lawrence, had learned fast. The shelter was never meant to be forever. She knew that from the first night she curled up on a thin mattress, clutching her stomach, willing the twins inside her to stay strong. She wasn't broken, just bent. Bent by betrayal, bent by a system that closed doors on women like her, but never, never broken. A mother's first fight. Her days became a blur of exhaustion and determination. Mornings started before sunrise. She cleaned floors at a corner clinic, mopped up blood, stocked supplies, took whatever shift no one else wanted. She never told them who she was, never spoke of medical degrees or international work. That part of her, Dorama Mora Lawrence, was gone, buried with the marriage that had cost her everything. She was just Amara now. And then, one cold November morning, Maya came first. Tiny. Silent at first, until the nurse coaxed a breath from her lungs. Then Nia, screaming like she knew the world had wronged her already. There was no family waiting outside the delivery room. No flowers, no cards. Just Amara, drenched in sweat and tears, holding her daughters with a fierce love that no man could ever take from her. She had no time to grieve. Bills didn't care about heartache. The twins cried through the night, and during the day she worked, one on her hip, the other strapped to her chest. They learned the rhythm of her footsteps before they learned her voice. Learning to stand tall again. Months passed. Amara barely noticed the seasons change. Winter bled into spring, but the cold lingered. Every day was a fight, for food, for shelter, for dignity. But in the quiet moments, when the girls slept beside her on a thin mattress, she remembered who she had been. She remembered the woman who ran clinics in Nairobi, who argued with CEOs, who spoke 5 languages and healed people no one else would touch. She was still that woman, somewhere. And slowly she began to reclaim her. A step toward the light. It started small, a borrowed library card. Medical textbooks she hadn't touched in years. Late nights studying while the girls dozed. She retrained her hands, her mind, her heart. The first time she sat for her US medical exams, she failed. But the second time, she passed top 10%. Her name wasn't Amara Lawrence anymore. She took back her maiden name, Dr. Amara Blake, and with it, a piece of her soul she thought had died. Back in the game. A clinic in Harlem, underfunded and overlooked, gave her a chance. They didn't care about pedigree, they cared about results. And Amara delivered. Patients came in droves. Word spread about the doctor who listened, who stayed late, who treated everyone, no matter their past, their color, their bank account. Her daughters grew up in the clinic halls. They colored in waiting rooms, learned to count using IV bags and bandage rolls. The nurses became family, the community, her shield. By the time Maya and Nia turned 3, Amara wasn't just surviving, she was rising. Recognition in the shadows. A local journalist wrote a piece, "The Angel of Harlem, One Doctor's Fight for Forgotten Lives." It wasn't national news. Donations trickled in. A small grant followed, then another. Amara opened a second clinic, then a third. She never forgot the nights she went hungry so her girls could eat, the humiliation of being erased, the cold slap of Graham's silence. But she didn't let it poison her. She poured it into purpose. The ghost of Graham Lawrence. She never spoke his name. When the girls asked, she told them their father had been someone who helped her once, but couldn't stay. They didn't push, they had her, and for now, that was enough. Still, on nights when the city went quiet, she wondered, did he think of them? Did he ever regret? Then one morning, flipping through a magazine in a waiting room, she saw it. Inside the wedding of the season, Graham Lawrence and Caroline Ashton. Her hands went cold. June 12th. The date was burned into her memory. The same day he threw her out, the same day she'd stood in the rain, heartbroken and pregnant. He had chosen that day to start his new life. Her breath caught, not from pain, but clarity. This wasn't just about him. This was about her daughters, their history, their right to the truth, a decision. She didn't want revenge. She wanted justice. She gathered everything, their marriage certificate, hospital records, the digital forensic report that proved the messages had been fabricated. A private investigator traced the lies straight back to Louise Lawrence. And when fate offered her a hand, in the form of a grateful airline executive patient, she took it. The helicopter was arranged. The date was set. Section 3. The day truth landed from the sky. The sky above the Lawrence estate was an endless, cloudless blue, serene and still, the perfect backdrop for a perfect wedding. But perfection, Amara knew, was always a fragile thing. She stood at the edge of the helipad, the blades slowing above her, the wind tugging at her navy Mueller suit. Maya and Nia clung lightly to her hands, their eyes wide with wonder but steady with trust. The dresses they wore, white with soft blue sashes, fluttered in the breeze, the same breeze that once carried her from this world. Now, it would carry her back. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice low, steady. Maya nodded. Nia squeezed her hand. And with that, they stepped onto the path that led not just to a wedding, but to a reckoning. The wedding that wasn't. Graham Lawrence had never felt fear the way he did in that moment. Not when he faced the board for the first time, not when he negotiated billion-dollar deals, not even when he buried his father and took the reins of Lawrence Biomed. Fear was a foreign language, until now. He watched as the helicopter descended, cutting through the ceremony like a blade. Petals flew from the aisle, guests gasped, and Caroline froze mid-step, her eyes darting between Graham and the sky like she was witnessing the impossible. And then she appeared. Amara. God, she looked the same. No, not the same. Stronger, sharper, more powerful than he ever remembered. And by her side, 2 little girls whose faces made his knees buckle. They had his eyes. Everything else, the guests, the flowers, Caroline's furious whispering, faded. All he could see was them. His past, his daughters, his truth. Chaos in the garden. The quartet stopped playing. Security moved. Too late. Louise Lawrence stood, her face pale, her fingers tightening around her pearls as if they could protect her from the storm she had unleashed. "Who is that?" Caroline hissed, grabbing Graham's arm. "What is going on?" But Graham couldn't speak. Because in that moment the life he had so carefully constructed cracked open, and inside there was nothing but regret. Amara walked with purpose, each step deliberate, unhurried. The crowd parted, whispers rising like smoke. "Is that?" "Her children." Maya and Nia held her hands, their small feet silent on the stone, their eyes scanning the sea of strangers with curiosity but no fear. They belonged here. They always had. A confrontation. Amara stopped 5 paces from the altar. She didn't look at the guests. She didn't acknowledge Louise or the senator or the hundreds of eyes fixed on her, like she was an intruder in her own story. She looked at Graham, straight through him. The weight of her gaze pinned him to the earth. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Amara knelt, smoothing the girl's hair. "Go on," she said softly. Maya stepped forward, clutching a photograph. Nia followed, holding a folded document. They didn't speak, didn't need to. Maya held the photo out to a woman in the front row, a picture of Graham holding a baby, half smiling, unaware. Caroline's face twisted. She gasped, stumbled back. Louise sat, stone-faced, but her eyes burned. The truth unfolds. Amara stood tall. "I didn't come to ruin your wedding," she said, her voice calm, clear, carrying through the stunned silence. "I came to give my daughters what they deserve, and to remind you, Graham, that the truth doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient." The guests didn't know where to look. Some stared at Amara, some at Graham, others at Caroline, whose hands trembled as she tore the veil from her head. "You knew about this?" Caroline demanded. Graham shook his head. "No, I did." But the words rang hollow, because deep down he had always known something wasn't right. A man unraveled. He remembered that night, the accusations, the lies, the fear that drove him to cast Amara out without listening, without question. And now here she stood, not broken, not begging, but whole, with their daughters. He asked, barely above a whisper. Amara's eyes didn't soften. "Because I waited long enough for you to come find us, and you never did." Caroline turned, storming down the aisle, her father close behind, already barking into his phone. Louise remained seated, her hands tight in her lap. And Graham. He stood, stripped of everything, wealth, reputation, certainty, facing the one thing he couldn't control. Truth. The wedding ends. The officiant stepped back. The ceremony dissolved. Guests began to murmur, to shift, some leaving quickly, others lingering, hungry for more scandal. But Amara didn't stay for the show. She turned to Maya and Nia, nodding. "We're done here." The girls took her hands. Graham took a step forward. "Please." But she didn't turn back. "This wasn't for you, Graham. It was for them." And with that she walked away, leaving him standing alone beneath the altar, surrounded by the ruins of the life he'd chosen. Later that night. In a quiet hotel room miles away, Amara sat on the bed, her daughters curled beside her, their small hands tangled in hers. Maya looked up. "Mama, is he bad?" Amara's heart ached. "No, baby. He's lost." "Will he find us again?" Nia asked. She brushed their hair back, kissed their foreheads. "If he does, it'll be because he's ready to be the man you deserve." Section 4. The search for redemption begins. The estate was empty. Not physically. There were still staff clearing out the remnants of what was supposed to be a perfect day, but spiritually it was hollow. The chandeliers still glittered, the roses still lay scattered like memories on the ground, but the life Graham Lawrence had spent years crafting was gone. And for the first time in his life, he didn't reach for control. He sat alone in the estate's library, the scent of aged leather and bourbon thick in the air. The world outside was already spinning, headlines blaring about the scandal, the wedding that collapsed mid-vow, the CEO exposed. But the noise didn't matter. All he could hear was her voice. This wasn't for you, Graham. It was for them. He stared at the photo Maya had handed the guest. He'd taken it in a different life, holding one of his daughters, smiling like a man who believed in forever. His hands trembled as he traced the image. They were real. They were his. And he'd never known them, never fought for them. He had left them to survive without him. Coward. That word haunted him now more than any scandal. The first attempt. 3 days passed before he dared to reach out. Her number was gone, disconnected. Her name, Amara Lawrence, no longer existed in any database. He called hospitals, searched records, tried every contact he had, but she was a ghost. Until one night, as he sat in the corner of a dim bar, a headline flickered across a small TV above the counter. Dr. Amara Blake, Harlem's Healing Hands. His heart stopped. There she was, standing in front of a modest clinic, a white coat over jeans, a quiet smile on her lips as she spoke about underserved communities. Maya and Nia were in the background, coloring on the floor, alive and safe. Graham's fingers gripped the edge of the table. He didn't know this version of her, but he would. Finding her. The next morning, Graham drove to Harlem. His wasn't his world. No polished sidewalks, no glass towers, but for once, he didn't care. He stood outside the clinic, unsure. What was he even doing here? He wasn't a man who asked, he was a man who took. But now, he had nothing left to take. Inside the clinic. The reception area was busy. Nurses moved with purpose. Patients sat waiting, the hum of life buzzing in every corner. The walls were covered in children's drawings, posters about health screenings, community events. He stood there, out of place, a suit in a room that didn't need suits. A nurse eyed him warily. "You lost?" "No," he said, clearing his throat. "I'm here to see Dr. Blake. She's busy. Please, tell her Graham Lawrence is here." The nurse's eyes narrowed. "Wait here." Minutes stretched like hours. He heard children laughing somewhere in the back, the clatter of medical carts, the low murmur of Amara's voice. Then she appeared. No makeup, no designer clothes, just Amara. And she was more powerful than he'd ever remembered. She didn't smile, didn't soften. "What do you want?" The first conversation. He followed her into a small office, walls lined with files, photos of Maya and Nia at different ages, birthday cakes, park visits, first day of school. He swallowed hard. "I came to say I'm sorry," he began. She raised her hand. "No, you don't get to start there." His chest tightened. "You don't get to apologize just to make yourself feel better," she said, standing firm. "You threw me out, Graham. You didn't even ask. You believed lies because it was easier than fighting for me. I didn't know." "You didn't want to know." Silence. She crossed her arms. "What do you want?" "I want to know them, Maya and Nia. Not for me, for them. If you'll let me." She studied him, long and hard. "We know of you. They don't know you. That will take time." He nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." Amara stepped closer, her eyes sharp, unwavering. "You don't get to pick and choose now. If you want to know them, you show up, you help, you learn, you serve. And not just them. This place, this life." She didn't believe him. "Not yet. Come back tomorrow. We open at 8. A humbling." Graham returned. And the next day, and the next. He didn't come in suits anymore. He came in jeans, rolled up his sleeves, and did whatever was asked. Filing, cleaning, running errands. No one cared who he was. He wasn't the CEO here. He was just a man trying to make up for lost time. He caught glimpses of Maya and Nia, heard their laughter, watched as they danced in the hallways, hugged nurses, drew pictures of superheroes with brown skin and curly hair. They were bright, beautiful, unbroken. Because Amara had never let them be. A glimmer of trust. Weeks passed. He never asked for more than she gave. He didn't push, didn't beg, until one Friday, as the clinic emptied, Amara handed him a small card. Saturday, 3 p.m., their recital, if you want to come. His heart surged. I'll be there. She didn't smile. But for the first time her eyes weren't cold. Section 5. The questions only a child can ask. The auditorium was small, tucked between a weathered community center and an old church with stained glass windows that caught the afternoon light. Folding chairs lined the aisles, filled with parents, siblings, and neighbors. The stage, no more than a raised platform with creaky wooden steps, had been dressed with hand-painted backdrops, stars, moons, a night sky full of wonder. To Graham Lawrence, it might as well have been the grandest hall in New York. He stood at the back, his hands clenched nervously, scanning the room for them. His heart pounded like it used to before board meetings, but this was different. This wasn't business, this was life, raw, unscripted. Maya and Nia's dad, a woman whispered, tapping his arm. He turned, surprised. Second row, left side. There's a seat saved for you. First row, first time. He hesitated, then nodded, walking down the aisle as eyes followed him. Not many people here knew who he was. To them, he was just a man out of place, too polished for this worn room. But he sat anyway. And waited. The lights dimmed. Children shuffled onto the stage, some grinning, some terrified, dressed in paper costumes and glittered hats. Graham leaned forward, breath caught in his throat. Then he saw them. Time involving Maya, poised and serious, her curls pinned back, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found him. She didn't smile, but she saw him. Nia beside her, bouncing on her toes, excitement bubbling over. She waved, not at him but generally, at everyone. Graham's chest tightened. They were beautiful. They were his. And he was a stranger. A recital. They sang songs about stars and dreams, about bravery and hope. Maya's voice was soft but steady. Nia missed her cue once, then giggled, making the audience laugh with her. Graham didn't move. He watched every second, memorized every gesture. When it ended, applause filled the room, loud and proud. The parents rushed forward, hugging, laughing, taking pictures. He stood, unsure. Then he saw Amara, standing by the side door, watching. She gave him a nod. He walked forward, slowly, as Maya and Nia ran to her, their voices full of excitement. "Did you see, Mama? Did you hear us?" Amara smiled. "I saw everything." And then they turned. Maya's eyes met his first. Cautious, measuring. Nia smiled wide. "Hi, Graham." He knelt, eye level with them. Maya tilted her head, that same tilt he saw in the mirror every morning. "You came." I promise." She nodded, considering. Nia stepped closer, reaching into her little purse. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, a drawing, 3 stick figures under a sun. One tall with curly hair, 2 smaller, holding hands. "This is us," she said, beaming. His throat tightened. "Can I keep it?" "Oh." Maya still walked, quiet, thoughtful. Then she asked, Why did you leave Mama? A question. It was a whisper, but it hit like thunder. Amara's eyes flicked to him, unreadable. Neo looked up, confused. You left? Graham sat back on his heels. He said, voice low, a long time ago, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made. Maya's brows furrowed. But why? He looked at Amara, then back at them. Because I was scared, and I didn't believe what I should have. I thought I was right, and I didn't listen to her. I didn't understand what it meant to be a family. Silence. Then, Maya said, Mama never leaves. I know, Graham whispered. She's strong. His skin. She's the strongest, Nia agreed proudly. He smiled, the ache in his chest deepening. I want to learn from her, and from you. Maya nodded slowly. A new beginning. They didn't hug him. Not yet. But they didn't walk away either. Amara stepped forward, resting a hand on Maya's shoulder. We're going for ice cream. You can come if you want. Graham stood, stunned. I'd like that. The ice cream shop. It was nothing fancy. Chipped tables, neon signs, the hum of an old freezer. But to Graham, it felt like sacred ground. Maya ordered vanilla with sprinkles, Naya strawberry with everything on it. Graham took chocolate. They sat at a small table, the girls laughing, Amara watching, a quiet presence. Did you ever eat ice cream with Mama? Nia asked. Not enough, he said. Do you like stars? Maya asked, eyes narrowing. I do now. The weight of small moments. They talked about school, about cartoons, about nothing and everything. Amara didn't say much, but she didn't need to. Her silence was permission. At the end, as they wiped sticky hands and gathered their things, Naya grabbed his hand. Will you come again? Graham looked at Amara. If I'm allowed. Maya considered. You can. Outside the shop. The sky was turning dusky, the city softening into evening. Amara stood beside him, the girls running ahead, chasing each other's laughter. You handled that better than I expected, she said. I've had a lot of time to think. She nodded. They'll ask more, harder questions. I'll answer. Her eyes softened, just a flicker. Good. Section 6. Facing the past together. Graham hadn't set foot in the Lawrence family estate since the day everything fell apart. The gates loomed before him now, cold and unwelcoming, a stark contrast to the world he was beginning to learn, the world of second chances, of small joys, of... But he wasn't here by choice. Louise Lawrence had summoned him, and this time he would not come alone. A mother's fury. Louise Lawrence sat in the grand parlor, her posture as rigid as the high-backed chair she commanded. Pearls at her throat, navy silk suit impeccable, she was every inch the matriarch she had always been, except now the mask had slipped. The scandal of the wedding hadn't just embarrassed her. It had threatened everything. The Lawrence name, the company, the legacy, and her control. When Graham entered, she barely looked up. Sit. He remained standing. Where is she? Louise snapped. Amara's not here, he said, but we're not having this conversation without her. Louise's eyes narrowed. You think she has any place in this family now? She always did. You just couldn't stand it. Louise stood slowly, walking to the fireplace, her heels clicking like a metronome. I protected you, Graham. I protected us. That woman would have destroyed everything we built. She was my wife. Was a mistake. The door creaked open before Graham could respond. Amara stood there, calm, composed, a folder in her hands. Hello, Louise. A confrontation. Louise's face paled. You don't belong here. I think we both know that's not true, Amara replied, stepping into the room. Graham moved to her side. We're here to settle this, he said. All of it. Louise scoffed. You think you can waltz in here with accusations, with drama, and dismantle everything? You're still my son. No, Graham said, voice steady. I was your puppet. I'm done. Amara laid the folder on the table. Inside, documents, timelines, proof. The digital forensics, the shell company, the emails tying Louise to the forged messages that had ruined Amara's life. This ends now, Amara said. Louise's hand trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages. This is nothing. It's enough to bury you, Graham said, unless you step down from the board, from the company, publicly. You would do that to your own mother. You did worse to my wife. The threat unraveled. Louise sank into her chair, rage boiling beneath the surface. And what? You think the world will forget? You think they'll believe her over me? They'll believe the truth, Amara said, because I'm not afraid anymore. Louise's eyes darted between them. This company is mine. No, Graham said. It's ours now. Amara and I are merging her clinics with Lawrence Biomed. We're changing everything. You'll destroy us. We'll rebuild something better. Silence. Then, for the first time, Louise seemed small. You'll regret this. Graham said quietly, I regret what I let you do. To walk away. They left her there, alone, surrounded by the ruins of her power. Outside the air was crisp, the sky a pale blue, stretching wide and free. Amara stood beside Graham, her arms crossed, eyes distant. Do you think she'll fight back? She'll trip. Are you ready for that? He turned to her. I'm ready for anything, as long as I'm standing with you. She didn't smile, but she didn't walk away either. The boardroom shift. 2 weeks later, the Lawrence Biomed board met in secret. Graham presented everything. Louise's resignation, the merger proposal, Amara's clinic model, and a plan for community dinner healthcare. The room buzzed with resistance, but Graham, for the first time, didn't flinch. He had Amara's data, her vision, her resolve. And in the end, the board saw what he had come to understand. The future wasn't about legacy, it was about people. The merger passed. Amara's decision. That evening, Graham waited outside her clinic, watching the last patients leave, the lights dim. She joined him, leaning against the wall. It's done, he said. I know. What now? You tell me. He hesitated. I want us to build this together. The company, the clinics, a better way. She nodded. For them. For them. Section 7. The first real steps into fatherhood. It wasn't a boardroom. It wasn't a clinic. It was a Saturday morning in a small kitchen in Brooklyn, where sunlight spilled through old windows, warming the faded tile floors and catching on the edges of picture frames. Snapshots of a life Graham had never known. Maya and Nia sat at the table, legs swinging, messy curls bouncing as they argued over who got the bigger pancake. Amara stood at the stove, flipping breakfast like she had done 1,000 times, wearing a soft grey t-shirt and jeans, her hair tied up, barefoot. And Graham, he stood in the doorway, hands awkwardly stuffed in his pockets, unsure of where he fit. You're going to burn them if you keep standing there, Amara said without turning. He blinked. Right. He stepped forward, rolling up his sleeves. What can I do? She glanced at him. You can set the table. Learning the small things. It wasn't glamorous. There were no deals to close, no crises to manage. Just plates, forks, a pitcher of orange juice that he almost spilled. But when he looked up and saw Maya giggling at Naya, saw Amara shake her head with that familiar flick of her wrist, something inside him softened. This was the life he had walked away from. And now he was here, trying to find his place in it. A pancake incident. "I want chocolate chips in mine," Nia declared. "You always want chocolate chips," Maya rolled her eyes. "Well, I always get them." "Today," Graham said, stepping in before the argument turned into war. "Today, everyone gets both, plain and chocolate chip. Deal?" The girls looked at each other, then nodded. Amara raised an eyebrow, but didn't comment. They ate together, the table filled with crumbs, syrup, and the occasional burst of laughter. Graham didn't check his phone once. A walk in the park. Later, they went to the park. Maya insisted on showing him how high she could swing. Nia dragged him to the monkey bars, demanding he spots her as she climbed. He did, awkwardly at first, but slowly the stiffness faded. He cheered when they ran, laughed when they tumbled into piles of leaves. Amara sat on a bench, watching, her arms folded but her face unreadable. He sat beside her when the girls ran off to the slide. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For this. For today." She nodded, eyes still on the girls. "It's not just today. This is their life. You can't just dip in and out." "I know," he said, voice low. "I'm not going anywhere." A glimpse of trust. They sat in silence for a while, watching the girls, the easy rhythm of childhood filling the space between them. "I was scared," Graham admitted. "When I first saw them, I didn't know if I could ever be what they need." "You don't have to be perfect," Amara said. "You just have to be present. Want to be." She turned to him, eyes softening just a little. "Then show up. Every time. Bedtime stories." That night, for the first time, Graham stayed until bedtime. Maya chose the book. Nia insisted he do the voices. He stumbled through it, but they didn't care. When he kissed their foreheads goodnight, Maya whispered, "Night, Graham." Nia yawed at "Nai, Daddy." The word hit him like a wave. He turned to Amara, standing in the doorway, her face in shadow. It's just a quiet conversation. They sat on the couch, the house finally still. "She's not confused, is she?" he asked, voice low. "No kids understand more than we think. They know you weren't there before, but they know you're here now." He nodded, staring at his hands. "I want to do this right," he said. "I want to make up for—" "You can't erase the past, Graham. I know, but maybe I can build something now. With them. With you." Her eyes flicked to his, sharp, searching. He asked. He swallowed. "If you let me." Amara leaned back, her gaze distant. "I don't know if I can," she admitted. "I don't know if I trust you. Not fully." Touched his fair. He said softly. "But I'm here. I'm not asking you to forget. I just want a chance." A tentative step. She didn't answer right away. But when she stood, she didn't walk away. Instead, she handed him a small photo from the shelf. The girls, smiling, arms around each other, light in their eyes. "Keep this," she said, "so you remember what you're fighting for." Session 8. Tested by the past. It had been 2 months since Graham first stepped back into their lives. 2 months of quiet breakfasts, school pickups, Saturday park visits, and hesitant steps into something resembling fatherhood. 2 months of rebuilding not just trust, but belief. Belief in himself, in his daughters, in the fragile bond between him and Amara. And yet, the past never stayed buried. It called. It came on a Tuesday morning, just as Graham was leaving the clinic. His phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He hesitated before answering. "Graham Lawrence," he said, stepping into the crisp autumn air. A pause. Then a voice he hadn't heard in years. "Son." His chest tightened. "Everett." His father's voice was low, controlled, but there was tension there, a warning. "We need to talk." A father's ultimatum. They met at the old law office downtown, where polished wood and silence ruled. Everett Lawrence was older now, but not weaker. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharp. "I've stayed out of it," Everett began, pouring himself a drink. "Let your mother run wild with her schemes, let you fall apart. But I won't stand by while you destroy what's left." Graham sat, calm. "I'm not destroying anything." Everett's eyes narrowed. "The merger, the clinics, this fantasy you're living with Amara, it's not sustainable. The board is restless, investors are pulling back. We're doing something real, something good." "This isn't about good. It's about survival, power, legacy." Graham leaned forward. "That legacy almost cost me everything." Everett's face hardened. "Then cut your losses, settle with her, move on. You've made your point." Graham stood. "I'm not walking away, not from her, not from our daughters." Everett's voice dropped, cold as steel. "Then you'll lose everything else." The choice. That night, Graham sat in the small Brooklyn apartment, watching Mai and Nia draw at the table, their heads bent together in laughter. Amara walked in, setting down a plate of sliced apples. "You're quiet," she said, sitting beside him. He hesitated. "Our father called." Her face tightened. "What does he want?" "For me to leave. To end the merger. To walk away." She didn't flinch. "Are you going to?" He looked at her, the weight of a lifetime of choices pressing down. He heard. "Now, the fallout begins." Word spread quickly. The board issued an emergency meeting. Stock prices dipped. The press circled, hungry for scandal. Louise Lawrence reappeared in public, giving carefully worded statements about family matters and temporary transitions. Graham stood firm. He brought Amara to the boardroom. Let them see her, hear her. She presented their plan again. Data, projections, the future of community healthcare, not as charity, but as innovation. Some listened. Some resisted. But Graham didn't back down. "This is who we are now," he told them, "and if you can't see it, step aside." Amara's doubt. Later, in the quiet of the clinic office, Amara paced, frustration in every step. "You're risking everything," she said. "For what?" "For us." "There is no us, Graham. Not yet." He stepped closer. "But there could be." She stopped, eyes flashing. "Don't do this to prove something. Don't make me part of your rebellion." He shook his head. "I'm doing this because I believe in it. In you, in what we're building." Her voice dropped, softer. "And if it all falls apart, then we start again." A storm in the making. The backlash grew. Articles questioning Amara's role, whispered doubts about Graham's leadership. Investors demanded results. The clinic faced inspections, surprise audits, attempts to discredit her. One night as she locked up, she found a letter, no return address, just one line. "You don't belong here." Standing together, she called him. He came. Read the letter, silent fury in his eyes. "You mean the idea?" he asked. His voice jarred. He stopped briefly. "Neither will I." Session 9. A crisis of the heart. The rain came suddenly that night, a cold, unrelenting downpour that soaked the streets of Harlem, turning sidewalks into rivers. Inside the clinic, the last patients had gone. The lights dimmed, but Amara sat at her desk, unmoving, a medical file open in front of her. Her hands rested on either side of it, fingers curled, knuckles white. She had read the words 3 times, but they didn't change. They didn't soften. Abnormal results. Immediate follow-up required. The weight of silence. She didn't hear Graham come in. He had gotten used to staying late, sometimes just to finish paperwork, sometimes because the apartment felt too quiet without the sound of Maya and Nia's laughter. He found peace in the rhythm of the clinic, in the life they were building, even if it was still fragile. He said softly, seeing her stillness, "You okay?" Amara looked up, eyes guarded. "Just tired." He didn't believe her. But he didn't press. Not yet. The breaking point. Days passed, but Amara was distant. She still showed up, for the girls, for the clinic, but something was different. Graham noticed it in the way she avoided his gaze, the way she turned away when he reached for her. One evening, after putting the girls to bed, he found her in the kitchen, staring into the darkness. "Talk to me," he said, gently. "At 5. "No, you're not." She exhaled, sharp. "I can't do this, Graham. Not now." "To watch this," she motioned between them. "You here trying to be everything." He stepped closer. "Amara, if something's wrong, tell me." Her eyes filled, and for a moment he saw the fear she never showed, the weight she always carried alone. "I found something," she whispered. His heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "During a routine exam. It's probably nothing, but I don't know yet." Fear in the bones. She turned away, her voice low. "I've handled worse, Graham. I don't need saving." He reached for her hand. "I'm not here to save you. I'm here to stand with you." Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I'm scared," she admitted. He pulled her close, holding her like he should have years ago. "Then let me be here. Every step. A test." The following week was a blur of appointments, scans, consultations. Amar insisted on going alone. Graham stayed with the girls, taking them to school, making breakfast, fumbling through their routines with a determination that surprised even him. At night, he sat by the phone, waiting. She wouldn't let him come. Not yet. The questions they asked. "Where's Mama?" Maya asked one morning, her eyes searching. "He's got some doctor stuff," Graham answered, careful. "Is she sick?" Neera's voice trembled. "No," he said quickly, too quickly. "She just needs some time. Standing alone, but not for long." Amara sat in the hospital parking lot, the results in her lap. Benign. Her shoulders shook with relief, exhaustion, the flood of emotions she had held back, crashing all at once. She thought of the girls, of Graham, of what it meant to not have to fight alone anymore. Homecoming. When she walked into the apartment, the girls ran to her, burying their faces in her coat. Graham stood behind them, silent, watching. She knelt, kissing their heads, holding them close. Then she looked up. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm okay." Graham crossed the room in 2 steps, pulling her into his arms. A different kind of strength. Later, after the girls had fallen asleep, they sat together on the couch, hands entwined. "I've never been good at needing people," Amara said. "I've never been good at being needed," Graham replied. She looked at him, eyes tired but steady. "But we're here now." He nodded. Together. Section 10. The final test of love. The air inside the Lawrence Biomed boardroom was colder than usual, though the thermostat read 72 degrees. It wasn't the temperature, it was the tension. Seated around the long glass table were men and women Graham had known for years, people who once saw him as the heir, the golden boy, the safe bet. Now they saw him as a risk. Across from him sat Louise Lawrence, back from her public disgrace, still holding sway with a few loyalists who feared change more than scandal. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You can walk away from this, Graham," she said, voice smooth, practiced. "Sell your shares, take care of your little family project, and leave the company to people who understand what's at stake." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked down at the contract in front of him. It was all there. A buyout, a clean break, a chance to walk away with his fortune intact, but not his soul. The choice that changed everything. Louise continued, "You've made your point. You embarrassed me, yes, but you've had your time playing house. Now, come back to reality." Graham raised his eyes, calm. "His reality," he said quietly, "is at home with my daughters, with Amara, with the people we serve." She scoffed. "And what? You're going to run this company like a charity?" "I'm going to run it like a man who finally knows what matters." He stood, sliding the contract back across the table. "You can have your offer. I'm not signing, and I'm not leaving." Louise's face darkened. "Then you'll lose." "No," Graham said, heading for the door. "For the first time, I've already won. The life worth living." He didn't go back to the penthouse. He went straight to the clinic. It was late, the halls quiet, but warm with the soft hum of life. Amara was in her office, reviewing patient files. She looked up as he entered, eyes searching his face. He crossed the room, sat across from her. "I turned it down." She didn't react immediately, just studied him like she needed to see if it was real. He whispered, "And I'm still here." A flicker of something passed through her eyes. Not relief, not yet, but something softer. Maybe trust. "You sure?" "I've never been more a family in the making." Weekend. They took the girls to the beach. It wasn't fancy, just a stretch of sand and sky, the ocean stretching out like a promise. Maya ran ahead, chasing waves. Neo built castles, giggling as the tide tried to steal them. Graham sat beside Amara, their toes in the sand. "They're happy," he said. "They're resilient," she replied, watching them. He asked, "Are you?" She smiled, small but real. "And what about you?" she asked. "I'm learning." She looked at him, serious now. "Graham, this isn't just about showing up. It's about staying, through the hard parts, through the doubts. I'm not going anywhere. A proposal, not of marriage, but of life." Later, as the sun dipped low, he pulled something from his pocket. Not a ring, but a small, worn photo. It was from Nairobi, the day they were married, barefoot, laughing, free. "I found this," he said, handing it to her. "I thought I lost it." She held it, fingers trembling slightly. "I don't expect you to forget what happened," he continued, "but I want us to write a different ending, not as the people we were, but as who we are now." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "If we fail, we wish, because this time, I believe in us. The new beginning." Months passed. The merger became a model. Their clinics grew. Lawrence Biomed transformed, no longer just a name but a movement, one rooted in people, in purpose. Graham and Amara didn't rush. They didn't need to. The girls thrived, two bright lights in a world that once tried to dim them. And love? It wasn't loud. It was in the small things. A shared glance over dinner, a hand held during a tough day, a whispered, "I'm here," when old fears crept in, unconscious, a story of love, loss, and redemption. Some stories don't end with fairy tale weddings or grand romantic gestures. Some stories end with quiet strength, with hard choices, with the slow, steady work of healing. This is one of those stories. Amara Blake was never meant to be erased. She was never a footnote in someone else's legacy. She was, and always had been, the author of her own life. Graham Lawrence wasn't born to understand love. He was born to lead, to conquer, to protect a legacy built on power and appearance. But power without love is empty, and appearances, as he learned too late, can deceive. What mattered wasn't the empire he inherited, but the family he almost lost. The heart of the story. This isn't just a story about a man who betrayed a woman and tried to come back. It's a story about truth, about the courage it takes to stand in it, even when it's uncomfortable. It's a story about forgiveness, not as a gift, but as a choice, lived day by day, with no guarantees, only hope. It's a story about family, not defined by blood alone, but by who shows up, who stays, who fights for love when it's hard, not just when it's easy. And most of all, it's a story about redemption. Because real redemption isn't about undoing the past, it's about becoming someone new in the present, for the sake of a better future. What can we learn? Love is action, not just words. Graham's journey teaches us that love is proven, not promised. Showing up once isn't enough. Real love requires consistent, humble, patient action. Strength comes in many forms. Amara didn't need saving. She needed space to stand, to rise, to be seen for who she was. Her strength was in her silence, in her choices, in her refusal to let pain define her. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness is powerful, but it doesn't erase wounds. It allows healing to begin, but trust must be rebuilt brick by brick. Family is who we fight for. Maya and Nia are the heart of this story. Innocent, wise beyond their years, they remind us that children don't need perfection. They need presence, honesty, and love that stays. The past can't be changed, but the future can be chosen. We can't go back. We can't rewrite the moments we regret. But we can decide who we want to be from this day forward. You? With life lesson. Sometimes the people we push away are the very ones we were meant to fight for. Love is not proven by grand gestures or wealth. It's proven in presence, in humility, and in choosing to stand beside someone even after failure. Redemption is not about erasing the past. It's about writing a better future together. And strength. It's found in those who refuse to let pain define them, but instead transform it into purpose. Call to action. If this story touched your heart, don't just walk away. Reflect. Who in your life needs to hear the words, "I'm here, and I'm not leaving"? Act. It's never too late to rebuild what was broken, with truth, with patience, with love. Share. If you believe in second chances and the power of redemption, share this story and inspire someone today.
Thank you for watching this Millionaire Love Stories today. Every love story is a journey, filled with passion, heartbreak, and unforgettable moments. And here at Millionaire Love Stories, we bring you the most captivating tales of love, wealth, and destiny. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget, like to support more incredible content. Comment your thoughts. Would you choose love over riches? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Millionaire Love Stories, because love knows no limits. Because love changes everything. See you in the next story.